Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift Stage 6 was a rolling stage. It did have a flat finish, but I thought this was one for the breakaway. A large break did form with Joss Loudon, Rosamund Gannon. A lot of the strong teams like Trek Segafredo were represented with Audrey Cordon-Ragot, you can see there, as well as Lennert for FDJ, Canyon Schramm in there, DSM in there with Francisco Koch for DSM, who have Lorena Wiebes, as well as Henderson for Jumbo-Visma. And Wiebes, you often see this actually, riders riding, particularly when riders have the yellow jersey in the men's Tour de France, they ride too close to the front. She's getting a lot of wind compared to someone like a Voss who's deeper in the field. Maybe it doesn't matter initially. She didn't ride there all day, but you see she's moved back behind Lippert in a second. But UAE were chasing for Bastianelli, as well as Valcar, I think, for Persico yellow jersey because they could try and drop Marianne Vos, I guess, but that was unlikely in my opinion. And the breakaway seemed like Henderson being in there for Jumbo Visma was a hedge because Vos in a sprint, her sprinters just look so good this week. And if Vibers is dropped and not there, she has at least a 50% chance of winning, whereas Henderson is probably a little bit less than that. So we'd see Henderson, I don't know, some curious things later. Same with Trek Segafredo, who wanted a sprint with Balsamo at least once Vibers had issues. Cordon-Ragot attacks. Joss Loudon starts to bring her back with Rosamund Gannon in the wheel. Christine Madras is there for SD Works. Strong rider, often in a domestique role. She was sending the descents, and her and Henderson looked very, very strong. And yeah, Rosamund Gannon looked good. The big thing that changed this stage was on this short wooded descent, Lorena Wiebes crashing the green jersey on the right hand side of the road. I don't think there's footage of the crash because the trees obscure the helicopter, but that would mean that DSM were out. They weren't going to chase the break. It also meant if you're Jumbo Visma, Marianne Vos has got a greater chance of winning the stage as well as Trek with Balsamo, whereas Henderson then was attacking, which is somewhat curious. And then sort of that brought Lynette with her. Lynette was very strong and Joss Loudon. They were the last three to survive. Lynette maybe finessing a little bit. And so it almost made the work harder of Rihanna Marcus later or Jumbo Visma to bring the break back because Lynette was provided with a launch pad and then one of the strongest domestiques for Jumbo Visma, and Henderson was in that break working. And Lynette even had a gap of up to like 35 seconds at a point, and you see the team's pacing. It's not the hardest pace ever at this point. It's Movistar just keeping Van Vleuten safe, and SD Works, I think, keeping Mullman and Vollering safe. They aren't chasing the break fervently for Lotte Kopecky and Liana Lippert attack. So DSM did switch strategy that, okay, Vivas dropped, we can try and get a attack with Lippert, who's a strong, punchy rider, and Lebu can stay safe on GC. But the reaction to the Lippert move from Elisa Longa-Borghini on Trek and then SD Works started pacing meant that Lynette was caught with under 10 kilometers to go. Marcus was the eventual rider that brought her back in for Marianne Vos, the Dutch national champion, pacing on the front. And we see that it's Ellen van Dijk again, second wheel, and she's got Voss on her wheel again, which is exactly the same as what we saw yesterday. Balsamo was eating a fair bit of wind in the last 3 kilometers. She wasn't nicely sat on a wheel the entire time, and she was looking around for where Elisa Longa-Borghini was, who was the rider who was going to bring her forward into the last kilometers to go. It's still Van Dijk on the front, Kopecky third wheel, Balsamo's fourth wheel, and Elisa Longa-Borghini, her teammate's going to move up on the left-hand side. There's a little chicane coming up as well, which is going to complicate matters. The left, right, and then squeezes. Ludwig's just trying to stay safe on GC. Persico's there for Valcar, who's been a revelation this year, and Balsamo squeezed back. She's pretty deep, whereas Voss is just getting the perfect sit brought in the draft of Ellen van Dijk in second wheel the entire time. Kopecky third wheel in good position for once, better than the other stages, and Elisa Longa-Borghini jumps here. She's got Balsamo on the wheel. She's going to try and move up and bring her ahead of Voss. Voss sees it coming, and because Van Dijk, and it also there's this squeeze point which rubs up a lot of speed from Balsamo and Longa-Borghini there. They had to brake and stop pedaling, and so they lose a lot of momentum, and so they don't come past Voss at pace. And Voss is able to, I mean, impressive from her. She's eating wind herself. She then slots onto Longa-Borghini's wheel a little bit. Longa-Borghini, did she have an opportunity to move over to the right-hand barrier from her perspective and squeeze Voss a little bit slowly and box her in? Probably not, because Voss always kept her wheels or body overlap with Longa-Borghini. When she kicks, we see that Balsamo has to pretty much sit down with 75, 50 meters to go, and Voss wins this sprint ahead of Bastianelli. Kopecky third. Persico comes fast, and she veered across, if you see from this front on, in front of Confalonieri, and nearly chopped her like, I think, Ackermann to August Jensen in Scheldeprijs 2020 or 2021. But Voss wins. Incredible win from her. The first win, I believe, ever in the yellow jersey in the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, ahead of Bastianelli, who looked much better today than on other stages. Capecchi third, Balsamo fourth, Persico, Confalonieri, Guazzini, Nuviroma, Barbieri, and Logoborghini running at the top 10. Voss keeps yellow, extends the lead by another, I think, 6 or 10 seconds on Persico from bonus seconds. Make sure tomorrow, if there's one stage you're going to tune into, it's the stage tomorrow, the mountain stage. It's not one to be missed. 3 big climbs and a battle between Van Vleuten and SD Works. Can't wait to watch it. I'll see you with a recap of it tomorrow. Ciao.